Gang, 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 gang. It's ghetto, it's ghetto, it's ghetto, it's ghetto, it's ghetto. Apologies for the technical issues earlier, but we back. We back for part 2.5 of Xmas Aint, gang. Part 2.5. I'm not gonna belabor the point. We're gonna get right back to it. Let's go.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor.
Christmas in the modern day has taken on a rather innocent tone. The common image of Santa Claus coming down chimneys, arms laden with presents, is a very modern one. Traditionally, for many Christian cultures, this time of year was seen as a holiday which encouraged wanton depravity and the horror of sin. Such Yuletide debauchery was regarded as unchristian by many Protestants, leading to widespread avoidance of the celebration. Indeed, the Christmas season was a time of demons and monsters. Around the year 2000, on the internet there began to circulate Christmas postcards from the Alpine regions of Europe that depicted an odd tradition hitherto largely unknown to the English-speaking world. Such postcards portrayed a large, hairy, devil-like figure flogging children or stealing them away in a basket on his back. Many were shocked by such images, whose idea of Christmas was more in line with a jolly old father figure handing out presents to the pleasant tune of jingling bells. It was disturbing to think that anything so vile and demonic could be associated with so joyous a holiday. Yet, Krampus, the horned devil creature, predates Christmas and Christianity. He is the son of Hel, the Norse goddess who is said to rule over her domain, also called Hell. As the Christian notion of Christmas spread across Europe, Krampus was not immediately associated with the celebration. In fact, the horned monster's origins are dubious and hard to trace. It is believed that Krampus is a pagan remnant that survived in the Alpine communities of Europe. More so than any other parts of the continent, due to their geographical isolation, these mountainous communities syncretized their old pagan beliefs with Christianity. Thus, Krampus remained. As winter darkened the night sky, Krampus night was celebrated. Traditionally, men in the village would cover themselves in sheepskins and wear elaborately made masks. Then they would go to their neighbors' houses and chase children, threatening to beat them with switches made of strong, flexible wood, as they rang bells to increase the torment. In some places, it is even said that children were made to run a Krampus gauntlet, a street lined with angry Krampuses eagerly trying to hit them with tree branches. Despite the Inquisition's attempts to root out these heretical celebrations, the locals seemed adamant and chased children, threatened. Traditionally, men in the village would cover themselves in sheepskins and wear elaborately made masks. Then they would go to their neighbors' houses and chase children, threatening to beat them with switches made of strong, flexible wood as they rang bells to increase the torment. In some places, it is even said that children were made to run a Krampus gauntlet, a street lined with angry Krampuses eagerly trying to hit them with tree branches. Despite the Inquisition's attempts to root out these heretical celebrations, the locals seemed adamant in their pursuit to torment children each Christmas. As such, Krampus Night was, and still is, celebrated on the 5th of December, the eve of St.Nicholas Day. In the 17th century, after the Inquisition had failed to bring the aggressive tradition to rest, Krampus was symbolically chained by St. Nicholas. A form of compromise, Krampus was no longer regarded as a roaming monster, but as a necessary evildoer who St. Nicholas shackled to carry out his dirty work. In other words, the pagan Krampus had been co-opted into Christianity.
Dang.
Folklore now depicted Krampus as punishing naughty children in a variety of ways. Covering the full spectrum of punishment, Krampus handed out discipline freely, from the tame, such as being left a lump of coal instead of a gift, to the brutal extreme of children begging for mercy before being drowned in a barrel of ink and having their lifeless corpses fished out by Krampus's pitchfork so that he could then parade his trophy around the village. Some children would even be abducted, thrown into his basket to be taken down to hell. Throughout the centuries, people and even governments have tried to suppress this macabre Christmas tradition. Even the extremely radical political party which controlled Germany during the 1930s and 40s found Krampus to be too evil for their liking. Yet the psychopathic and brutal festive monster has survived the centuries, expanding out of Europe and across the sea to America. On the night of the 5th of December, more streets than ever before are lined with people dressed as the horned Christmas monster. In German tradition, Perchta can be a kind and giving entity who takes the shape of a beautiful woman. She is believed to visit people's homes during the Christmas season and leave a silver coin for those inhabitants she judges to be good. In this way, Perchta is a figure akin to a benevolent goddess of nature. However, folklore tells that there is another side to Frau Perchta. To those who have misbehaved, she appears old and haggard. In fact, she is evil incarnate. Before they are able to run away, naughty children are trapped. The last thing they see is an iron knife plunged into their soft bellies. Next, their innards are removed by Perchta's savage hands. Straw and pebbles are stuffed into the empty cavity which was once a child's stomach. Finally, Perchta sews up the corpse, so that whoever finds the cadaver would not realize what brutal event had taken place. Such a nightmarish tale is meant to serve as warning to naughty children at Christmas time. Be good, or Frau Perchta will come for you.
Not Frau Perchta.
There are said, however, to be some pleasant countermeasures to Perchta's knife that can be employed by anyone, regardless of whether they are naughty or nice. Traditionally, feasting on cakes, herring, dumplings and pancakes is said to repel this feminine fiend. If you eat enough of the right kinds of foods, her knife will simply bounce off your belly. German children are also told that it is important to eat a traditional meal on Perchta Day, the 5th of January. With the feast held in her honor, leaving enough leftovers on the table is said to placate Perchta during her nocturnal visit. However, this too carries danger, for if you do not celebrate with the right sorts of foods, namely those which Perchta likes, then she will still visit you as you sleep in your bed. Just like the naughty children, your innards will be gouged as repayment for the offense. And if she catches you trying to go downstairs to spot her eating your food at night, this creepy Christmas character will blind you, a lesser, but nonetheless brutal punishment.
This is what we celebrating,
Whilst
y'all.
other Christmas monsters are usually depicted as
Ain't this wonderful?
akin to the devil,
Look what we
Père
celebrate.
Foutard is the exception for being an ordinary man. In fact, the now folklorish figure is reported to have been based on a real person. Foutard is said to have lived in the town of Myra in what is now Turkey, working as an innkeeper. One day he lured 3 children to his inn with the promise of a meal. They, however, did not receive a meal, instead being served the icy hand of death. After the deed was done, the innkeeper chopped up their bodies. The children's dismembered body parts were placed into barrels to pickle and be preserved.
My God.
It is said that Foutard enjoyed dining on the unfortunate children for days. Before the barrels were emptied and the dreadful deed concealed forever, Foutard received an unexpected visitor. The historic St. Nicholas, who was working as a miracle-making bishop, discovered the innkeeper's crimes. Foutard was penitent in the face of the great saint and pledged his life and afterlife to him.
It's a little
It
light.
may very
but
well
we'll
have been
let it go.
that the bishop St. Nicholas punished Foutard by means of incarceration. However, folklore remembers the heinous evildoer as being chained to St. Nicholas's will for all eternity, whereby he would help dissuade children from being naughty. From then on, Père Foutard was given free rein to fulfill his sadistic impulses, indentured to the saint who would later be known by the names Father Christmas and Santa Claus. In eastern France, Foutard was known to have carried a whipping rod with which to beat children deemed to be naughty. On his back was the wicker basket he used to abduct those children who were thought to be especially bad, presumably destined to be cooked and eaten.
I like it.
The legend of Père Foutard has continued to evolve over time. In the 1930s, he even managed to escape from Santa's clutches, after which he was said to have moved to America and got married. He and his new wife changed their names to Madame and Father Flog, under which pseudonyms they would continue to beat children who had committed crimes.
Give him a
Only
good
now,
flogging.
unshackled from St. Nicholas, he would do so all year long.
Jesus. This is
In
wonderful.
southeast Europe, it is told that during the
Fair
12
use,
nights
fair
of
use, fair
Christmas,
use.
from the 25th of December to the 6th of January, creatures usually hidden deep within the earth surface to wreak havoc on the living. Their descriptions are varied. In some areas they are described as being tiny goblin creatures who go down people's chimneys and cause destruction. In other areas they are giant reptilian monsters with large claws. Sometimes they are depicted with bright red eyes. What is consistent in their descriptions throughout rural areas in the Balkans is their malevolent nature. Some Kalikantzaroi are said to enjoy pulling pranks, stealing, and generally sowing discord in communities around Christmas. However, their most notorious acts are committed when they slide down chimneys into people's homes. Furniture and household possessions are destroyed, people are savagely beaten, and intestines are indiscriminately ripped from bellies. Folklore also tells how Kalikantzaroi are generally sowing discord in communities around Christmas. However, their most notorious acts are committed when they slide down chimneys into people's homes. Furniture and household possessions are destroyed, people are savagely beaten, and intestines are indiscriminately ripped from bellies. Folklore also tells how Kalikantzaroi especially desire to kidnap newborn babies during the Christmas period.
Not the
They
babies.
regard it as their duty to cause trouble for surface-dwelling mortals.
Man.
There are, however, several easy ways to deter these vicious vandals. Newborns can be bound in straw and garlic to keep these monsters away. An even simpler method to deter them is to leave a colander outside of your home. As bizarre as it sounds, tradition states that a simple kitchen colander will keep the Kalikantzaroi so occupied that they will not enter your home. for these goblin creatures are incredibly stupid and cannot count beyond the number 2. Thus, feeling the irresistible urge to count all the holes in the colander, these beings will end up spending the entire night counting from 1 to 2 repetitively. All thoughts of mayhem and brutality kept at bay. As the festive season ends, these malevolent imbeciles return underground to resume their evil work. For folklore says that Calicanceroi spend the whole year soaring the world tree, the mighty tree of legend which holds our world together. Yet each year, just as they are about to destroy the world, Christmas arrives. And so the Calicanceroi must surface and cause mayhem once again. Before I reveal the final Christmas fiend, I would like to talk to you about your Christmas reading. Of cannibals, psychopaths and demons that are said to be bound to Santa to help him punish bad children is the devil himself. In the Czech Republic and other European countries, people traditionally dress up as the devil and Santa Claus and visit different homes. There, old St. Nick asks the parents and children themselves if they have been good that year. If both say yes, then gifts are joyfully handed to the children as a reward. If the children have been naughty and confess to being so, Santa chides and tells them to be better behaved for next year. If, however, the children lie to Santa, it is time for the devil to step in. Knowing what is to come, the children usually act hysterically from fear at the mere sight of him, hiding under beds and cowering in corners. Once the devil corners his prey, he slings the naughty children over his back and takes them to hell. At least that is what any other children watching are led to believe. In actuality, they are taken into another room of the house by the costume disciplinarian and scolded, told that they really will go to hell next year if they do not start behaving. Once this is over, all the children, regardless of whether they have been good or not, must sing and dance to appease the devil, without a doubt gripped by nervous fear and racing hearts.
That is crazy.
The inclusion of the...
That is crazy, gang. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Ooh, let's take a quick break. I'll be right back. That was really interesting. Fair use, fair use.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
I see trees of
Fair
green,
use, fair use, fair use.
red roses too.
Come on, Smokey.
I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself,
What you thinking, Smokey?
what a wonderful world.
Fair use, fair use, fair use.
You're a bastard, Mr. Stubbs. You really are a Tom. You stole your friend's possessions to buy a CD-ROM, Mr. Stubbs. Your current address is at www.badodor.com.
But Santa, why are you taking our fish tank? Why?
Now that old dirty bastard was as smart as they get. He thought up a lie, and quickly, you bet. Phantom Menace is the best Star Wars yet. You're up.
Oh man, Check this out. Let's learn a little more about the German version of the pagan practice, Yule, where the Yule log concept comes from.
That our tradition of new
Fair use.
the hearth is kindled, snow is falling, and Christmas trees litter the street. Once again, December is upon us, and with it the holiday spirit. Today, even in our secular age, Christmas remains one of the most important times of the year. A time of giving, a time of sharing.
Before we get into that though, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. And support the movement, gang. Support the movement. Support the movement. $ his ghetto point of view. $ his ghetto point of view. $ his ghetto point of view. Every $10, $20, $100, $1,000 donation you give to the movement is much appreciated and definitely helps us take this to the next level. Appreciate you, gang. $ his ghetto point of view. $ his ghetto point of view. Hold on. Everything you do, gang, is so very much appreciated. Let's keep it going. Before we get into that video, just want to give you guys a little bit of this backdrop I pulled up. Encyclopedia Britannica.com. Yule festival observed historically by Germanic peoples and in modern times primarily by neo-pagans or new pagans, coinciding with the winter solstice, December 22nd, 21st and 22nd in the northern hemisphere, June 20th to 21st in the southern hemisphere. The pre-Christian festival originated in Scandinavia and was later subsumed along with other pagan celebrations into the Christian holiday of Christmas. Some into the Christian holiday of Christmas. Some modern celebrations of Yule attempt to recreate ancient traditions, while others have been adapted or reimagined to suit contemporary personal and religious practices. Ways of the people of vain. Yule is one of the oldest winter solstice festivals. Yule is one of the oldest winter solstice festivals, with origins among the ancient Norse thousands of years ago. Its roots are complicated and difficult to trace, although there are several theories about how and why the festival was celebrated. It is generally agreed that Yule celebrations began as a Norse festival called Yule, although assessments of the purpose and traditions vary. Like most winter solstice festivals, themes of light, fire, and feasting are common threads. Some historians think that sacrifices were an important part of the observance, either to the gods and other supernatural beings, such as elves, or to the dead, or both. In the harsh climate of northern Europe, most cattle were slaughtered because they could not be fed during the winter. Meat, therefore, was plentiful for a midwinter feast or to leave out as an offering. Some contend that the original festival was a sort of Norse Day of the Dead, with the god Odin, who was also seen as their father Christmas, their old father, Olum father, old father is Jeremiah Odin. Man, this is going to turn into a different conversation if we ain't careful. As a major player among Odin's many names was Mjolnir. And among his many duties was acting as a god of the dead. However, this has been disputed in recent years, at least one historian positing that Joel was a New Year festival intended to set the tone for the months ahead. I mean, New Year, solstice, the New Year kind of rolls from the winters. I mean, come on, guys. We're we're parsing hairs at this point. We're parsing hairs. We're being picky. One of the earliest known references to Yule is from the English monk and historian Bede, who wrote in the 8th century about Gwili, a period in the old pagan calendar used by Germanic groups such as the Norse and the Anglo-Saxons. Gwili or Gwili, pardon me for messing it up, was a 2-month span that marked the time when sunlight began to increase at the winter solstice. It was not a festival per se, but a marking of the passage of time. Yule became a name for Christmas about the 9th century, and in many languages, Yule and its cognates are still used to describe that holiday. Yule in Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish, Julud in Estonian, Julu in Finnish, and Jol in Icelandic. The Christmas holiday is still referred to as Yule in the Scots language. Shout out to the Scots. According to the saga of King Hakon Haraldsson, known as Hakon I Adelsteinsfostri, or Hakon the Good of Norway, who ruled in the 10th century, the Norse celebration and Christian Christmas celebration were merged during his reign. Hakon became Christian after his visit to England, and after his return to Norway, he put into law that Yule should be celebrated at the same time as Christmas. Everyone was required to have ale from a measure of grain, and to keep the holiday while the ale lasted, or else be subjected to a fine. You better keep partying while we got drinks, boy. From this point, Christmas continued to overtake Yule, although some vestiges of the original celebration remain. One of these is the Yule log, still popular today, although usually in altered form. It is this thought that the original Yule log, still popular today, although usually in altered. From this point, Christmas continued to overtake Yule, although some vestiges of the original celebrations remain. One of these is the Yule log, still popular today, although usually in altered form. It is thought to have the original Yule log. It is thought that the original Yule log was a large log that burned throughout the entire multi-day festival for as many as 12 days. A popular modern take on the Yule log is a roulade-style cake decorated to look like a log. Excuse me. Another remaining tradition is that of the Yule goat. In towns and cities throughout Sweden during the Christmas season, large goats are constructed out of straw. It is thought that the tradition originated in ancient times, perhaps as a tribute to the god Thor, who was said to ride in a chariot pulled by goats. In Sweden, the goat came to be associated with the Christmas celebration, and the Yule goat is now considered by many to be a companion or counterpart to Santa Claus. In modern times, Yule as a solstice celebration is observed by many neo-pagans as individuals and as groups. For Wiccans, Yule is the second Shabbat of the wheel year. Interesting. Of the wheel of the year, marked by rituals to welcome the return of the sun. Some mark the holiday with reenactments of the battle between the Holy King, representing darkness, interesting, and the Oak King, representing light of Celtic legend. Some endeavor to recreate traditions of the ancient Norse by burning Yule logs or with feast. Some simply stay awake until dawn, to observe these cycles of nature. Very interesting. We appreciate that. Yule, how the Vikings celebrated the winter holiday. The pagan, and this is history.com, the pagan holiday of Yule was held during the darkest days of winter and mark the start of the return of light. By Noah Tetzner, published December 17th, just a few days ago. While Christmas was celebrated far and wide by the Christians of medieval Europe, Vikings celebrated a winter holiday of their own. Yule or Jol in Old Norse was a pagan ceremony held for 3 nights beginning at the winter solstice in mid to late December, during the time of year when days are short and winter is at its peak. Origin of Yule. The word Yule predates the Christianization of Scandinavia around the year 1000 and refers to a midwinter festival that took place in December. The word appears in Anglo-Saxon sources that list names of the months, according to Terry Gunnell, Professor Emeritus of Folkloristics at the University of Iceland and an expert in pre-Christian Scandinavian traditions. Some scholars suggest that the term Yule may derive from one of the names for Odin, the Norse war god. Another theory is that it refers to the wheel of the calendar year. If you go to the north of Scotland around this period, you find traditions of rolling burning wheels down hillsides at this time of year. Gunnell explains, and that's to do with the turning of the year. This is really what Yule's about. Let me read that again. If you go to the north of Scotland around this period, you find traditions of rolling burning wheels down hillsides at this time of year, explains Gunnell. Gunnell explains, and that's to do with the turning of the year. This is really what Yule is about. So New Year traditions, end of year, beginning of the year, transitioning into the next year. Gotcha. Vikings celebrated Yule in midwinter, the darkest time of the year in Scandinavia, when sunlight is limited to a few hours each day. In the northernmost reaches of Norway, the sun doesn't rise for over 24 hours during peak polar nights. A deeply agrarian society, medieval Scandinavians depended on the sun for survival, and Yule marked the beginning of the return of daylight amid darkness. The sun is risen. The sun is born. The sun is now shining. Yule was also a time of remembrance when memories of the deceased were brought to the forefront. All times of changing tend to be liminal times when the doors between different worlds open up, says Gunnell. The dead and the living blend together. Very similar to the stuff that was going on for Halloween. Even now, you find people in Scandinavia going out to churchyards and lighting up candles. It's time to think about the dead. Feasting and drinking. Yule celebrations involved great amounts of feasting and drinking, just like Christmas ones. While sources for cultural festivals during the Viking Age are limited, Old Norse sagas and poems offer glimpses into the events of the pagan holiday. The saga of Hakon the Good, a literary account written in the 1260s about Hakon the Good, king of Norway from 934 to 961, describes a Yule festival. Jackson Crawford, a scholar of Norse mythology, notes that Hakon the Good was a Christian king. However, he allowed his subjects to remain pagan. He only insisted that everyone celebrate a holiday in December. Same-ish, man, Christmas or Yule, and stipulated that every free man consume a minimum amount of alcohol, approximately 4 gallons, over the course of 3 nights. man, to this day, people out here indulging crazy. In observance of the holiday, horse meat also played a significant role in Yule festivities and at Chinese restaurants. In the saga of Hakon the Good, the Norwegian king attends Yule feast thrown by his pagan subjects who insist that he eat some of the meat. Hakon refuses to partake, apparently because the eating of horse meat was considered a pagan ritual. After being threatened with violence, the king compromised, laying a linen cloth on the kettle of the boiling horse meat and inhaling some of the smoke. The sacrificing of the horses was important in Viking religious practices, as demonstrated in several Old Norse sagas and the excavation of burials. The swearing of oaths, similar to making a New Year's resolution, the swearing of oaths was a tradition at Yule celebrations. However, in Viking culture, these resolutions were solemn, iron-bound agreements. You can't get out of this. The central conflicts of many Old Norse sagas revolve around someone's ill-conceived oath that had to be fulfilled. Yeah, once you say you're doing this, we gonna make sure you go through with it. An oath sworn on Yule was deemed extra sacred. Crawford notes. Oaths sworn at Yule feast, as written in the 13th century, the saga of Hervor and Hedrick, pertain to the marriage of a woman. Okay. Meanwhile, oaths mentioned in Sturlog's sagas, Starfsama. Sturlog's saga Starfsama. Try to say that 5 times fast. Jeez. Sturlog's saga Starfsama, a medieval Icelandic saga in the Poetic Edda, a collection of mythological poems dating to the 13th century, involved touching a pig while declaring the oath. One example of an oath sworn on Yule was detailed in the Lay of Helgi Hjorvidson, a poem included in the Poetic Edda. The protagonist's brother, Heathen, interesting name, vows to woo Helgi's partner, Svava, while under the influence of a curse cast upon him by a sorceress. Heathen can't bring himself to fulfill the oath and flees his homeland. Helgi tracks him down, but when Heathen tells him of the oath, Helgi does not grow angry, but instead notes an opportunity. Helgi knows he is likely to die in an imminent duel with one of his enemies and readily leaves Svava to his brother. In stanza 33 of the poem, Helgi tells his brother, "Grieve not, Heathen, for true shall hold the words we both by the bear have sworn." Interesting. Very dope. Shout to history.com for that breakdown. Let's check this out.
One of long-standing traditions. The hearth is kindled, snow is falling, and Christmas trees litter the street. Once again, December is upon us, and with it the holiday spirit.
Fair use.
Even in our secular age, Christmas remains one of the most important times of the year. A time of giving, a time of sharing, and one of long-standing traditions. This is not to say, however, that no parts of Christmas have been lost in modern times. Secularity and so-called progress.
I'm sorry, this is a little low, guys. I'm gonna move on to the next video. But before I do that, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Where did that come from?
A license plate says it's from the federal government.
Attention urban poor. The Federal Health Department, in conjunction with the Center for Minority Control, is here today with complimentary flu shots. Complimentary means free.
Free needles? God is good.
Hey, whoa. What the hell, Hop, are you people doing? Have you forgotten all your conspiracy learnings? Listen, the government uses projects to test all kinds of poisons. Syphilis, crack, the McChitlins.
Those chitlins made me mix sick.
Now you see what I'm talking about.
Hold on, everybody. This is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And we, the people. I'm sure there's nothing to fear.
Thank you, Mrs. Stubbs.
How do you know my name?
Because we're your friends. Now come on over here and drop your pants.
No, Muriel, it's a trick.
It's just a flu shot. Don't listen to that fool.
Aha! Flu, F-L-U. Fool, F-U-L. Coincidence? I don't think so. Come on, people. Let's tell them they can take their flu shots and shove them up their Arsenio.
Yeah, just leave me my Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, and Social Security, and I'll be fine with no help from nobody. Yeah.
Hold up.
Gang, you guys make all of this so worthwhile. Any questions, comments, critiques, criticisms, hate, send it right here. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. Let us take a look at this video game that actually came out a couple years back that was based around the holiday Yule. This should be pretty cool. Fair use. That's the Odin or Old Father Christmas. The giving of gifts. Got all these creatures there that definitely look like a creature they would describe as a Pan type creature. I'll leave it there. Reindeers and all that. Gang, this is a completely pagan ritual. I'm sure it looks nice in the video game, but it's something we should be celebrating and teaching our kids to celebrate. Shout out to riffgame.com. Blood, violence, alcohol. I mean, come on, gang. I don't know if this is stuff our kids should be doing. And remember, gang, a lot of this is in reverence to Saturn. And let's get some more into that. Let's get some more into the understanding of the cult of Saturn. Let's go. Shout out to Odd TV.
Ancient Saturn and the Saturnian gods.
These days, Saturn can be seen with the naked eye, although it may be difficult for an average person to discern, so it's unclear as to when it was discovered. Early man worshipped heavenly bodies as gods. Myths proclaim we once lived in the presence of gods. These gods were visible powers, often unpredictable and frequently violent. The priestly astronomers of ancient Mesopotamia and elsewhere make clear that these remarkable powers were planets. Pictographs show what is commonly considered to be a sun as a huge disk with a smaller one in the center, often with rays flowing out of it, with a third darker circle superimposed in the center of that. Our sun looks nothing like that. In many different cultures, we see a symbol of a crescent with a star in its center. How could this be when there is no star or planet closer to Earth than our moon to form such a configuration? And most importantly, why do so many remote and widespread ancient cultures who most likely could have never been in contact with one another, such as the Sumerians, Egyptians, Chinese, Native American Indians, Mayans, Babylonians, Australian Aboriginals, and many others, all tell the same story and draw similar pictures? If these ancient writings were based on valid observations rather than fantasy, then it is suggested that planets were closer to Earth in the past and they moved in a collinear way, meaning that they were lined up as they traveled through space. For observers on Earth, the result was a unified configuration in the heavens, visually dominated by a large glowing planet, theorized to have been Saturn, then seen without its present ring system. The other two bodies in this configuration are believed to be Venus and Mars, with Venus in the middle shining brightly. In many ancient sources, Saturn is called Sun. The usual name for Saturn in Chaldean astronomy was Alap Shamash, meaning star of the sun. Diodorus of Sicily reported that the Chaldeans called Kronos, aka Saturn, by the name Helios, or the sun. And he explained that this was because Saturn was the most conspicuous of the planets. Popular Greek traditions identified Kronos as the alter ego of Helios. Hyginus also wrote that Saturn was called Sol. In the Babylonian astrological text, the word Shamash, sun, was used to designate Saturn and represented by an 8-pointed star in the middle of a disk, or an 8-spoked wheel. If Saturn was always as inconspicuous as it is present, what could have caused the races of antiquity to give Saturn the name Sun, or the Shining One? Ninib was the Babylonian name for Saturn, or at least one of them. Other names include Ninurta, which according to numerous scholars was the inspiration for the biblical character Nimrod. Ninib is said to shine like the sun. Astrologers must have found it increasingly. Traditions identified Kronos as the alter ego of Helios. Hyginus also wrote that Saturn was called Sol. In the Babylonian astrological text, the word Shamash, sun, was used to designate Saturn and represented by an 8-pointed star in the middle of a disk, or an 8-spoked wheel. If Saturn was always as inconspicuous as it is present, what could have caused the races of antiquity to give Saturn the name Sun, or the Shining One? Ninib was the Babylonian name for Saturn, or at least one of them. Other names include Ninurta, which according to numerous scholars was the inspiration for the biblical character Nimrod.
Which according to biblical scholars was the inspiration for the character Nimrod. Inspiration for the character Nimrod. Ghetto, where you going with this? Where you going with this, Ghetto? The character Nimrod is also another deity that we are giving homage to, particularly on December 25th, where many people say Nimrod was born on that day. Who the hell is Nimrod? For those that don't know, Nimrod is the king at the time of the building at the Tower of Babel. Nimrod is said to be a mighty hunter. A mighty hunter, a wise man. It is Nimrod who's trying to build a tower to go up to heaven that he may challenge the Most High and the angels. Let's take a quick swing at Britannica.com. Nimrod, biblical figure, construction of the Tower of Babel. The construction of the Tower of Babel, miniature, tempera colors, gold, silver paint, and ink by an unknown artist. Last updated November 21st. Sheesh, why y'all update this so recently, man? I can't get at the article before y'all try to taint the words. Damn. Nimrod, legendary biblical figure of Genesis. Nimrod is described in Genesis 10:8-12 as the first on earth to be a mighty man. Now, some people are like, well, what do you mean? What does that mean? They say that the mighty heroes or the mighty men of renown are the children of the Nephilim or the fallen, when the sons of God coexisted and interbred and had children with the daughters of men. They made these mighty men of old, heroes of renown, the Herculeses of the world, the Samsons, you know. Oh, Samson is listen, just listen to what I'm saying, okay? I got this. I promise you, I got this. There's many books that prove Samson is, mighty man of old, mighty man of renown. I'll leave it there for right now. I could go deeper, but that would completely derail this, and I'm already over here, right? So Nimrod, who's also being celebrated on December 25th. Let's keep going. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. The only other references to Nimrod in the Bible are Micah 5:6, where Assyria is called the land of Nimrod, Assyria. And in 1 Chronicles 10, which reiterates his might. In the Genesis passage, the beginning of his kingdom is said to have been Babel, or Babel, Erech, and Akkad in the land of Shinar. Nimrod is said to have then built Nineveh, or Nineveh, and Calah, modern day Nimrod, Rehoboth, and Resen. There is some consensus among biblical scholars that the mention of Nimrod in Genesis is a reference not to an individual, but to an ancient people in Mesopotamia. I mean, but every people has to have a king, man. The description of Nimrod as a mighty hunter before the Lord is an intrusion in this context, but is probably like the historical notices derived from some old Babylonian saga. However, no equivalent of the name has yet to be found in Babylonian or other cuneiform records. In character, there is a certain resemblance between Nimrod and the Mesopotamian epic hero Gilgamesh. Ghetto, why you getting so hyped? Because, man, we starting to see through the muck. So now we understanding that Nimrod, Gilgamesh, these is all connections of the same story. We'll keep going, man. We'll keep going. We got a lot to cover. The Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel, or Babel in biblical literature, structure built in the land of Shinar, Babylonia. Shinar is Babylonia, sometime after the deluge, after the great flood, the times of Noah. The story of its construction, given in Genesis 11:1-9, appears to be an attempt to explain the existence of diverse human languages. According to Genesis, the Babylonians wanted to make a name for themselves by building a mighty city and a tower with its top in the heavens. God disrupted the work by so confusing the languages of the workers that they could no longer understand one another, and even hurt one another in their frustration for lack of understanding. The city was never completed, and the people were dispersed over the face of the earth. And then there's other smaller stories within that where some group of people didn't want to participate in the building of the tower, so they went over to the other side. The Eber, those from the other side. Where'd they go? The myth may have been inspired by the Babylonian Tower Temple north of the Marduk Temple, which in Babylonian was called Babilu, Gate of God, Hebrew for Babel. The Hebrew form Babel or Bavel. The similarity in pronunciation of Babel and Balal to confuse led to the play on words in Genesis 11:9. Therefore, it is called Babel because the Lord confused the language of all the earth. It's possible. It's also possible that the Tower of Babel is the Temple of Cholula. Ghetto, what did you say? You heard what I said. The Temple of Cholula, the Great Pyramid of Cholula. You heard what I said. The Great Pyramid of Cholula, also known as Tlachihuatepetli, Nahuatl for constructed mountain. Construct is a complex located in Cholula, Puebla, Mexico. It is the largest archaeological site of a pyramid in the world. The largest pyramid in the world is in Cholula in Mexico? I thought the largest pyramids were in Egypt. What Egypt? That place over there in Africa that they try to tell you is Egypt? Stop it. I'm not going to go there right now. But when we get back to teachers steady lying to the kids, oh boy. I don't know. Maybe I should do it in Grifters Got a Griff. Let me know in the comments. Teachers steady lying to the kids and Grifters gonna griff for this joint with these pyramids, man. Let me know in the comments. But anyway, it is the largest archaeological site of a pyramid temple in the world, as well as the largest pyramid by volume known to exist in the world today. Not in some place in northern Africa, in Cholula, Puebla, Mexico. Here in the Americas. The Adobe Brick Pyramid stands 25 meters, 82 feet above the surrounding plain, which is significantly shorter than the Great Pyramid of Giza, but much wider, measuring 300 by 315 meters compared to the Great Pyramid's base dimension of 230 by 230. The pyramid is a temple that traditionally has been viewed as having been dedicated to the god Quetzalcoatl. The architecture style of the building was linked closely to that of Teotihuacan, the Valley of Mexico, although the influence from the Gulf Coast was evident as well because of El Tajin, especially from El Tajin, which is a pre-Columbian site. In southern Mexico, one of the most important cities of classic Mesoamerica. So some people, I know people, man, the Temple of Cholula. The Temple of Cholula. How can you falter when you the rocket? Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. But anyway, let's get back to this. So Nimrod building the Tower of Babel, and Nimrod is from Nene of pagan origin, or that god is said to have influenced the Nimrod of the Bible story. Let's keep going, man. And that's also similar to the story of Gilgamesh. For those that don't know the story of Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh also had a flood in his story. Oh man, we got digging to do, family, but we gonna be all right. We gonna be all right.
Century, the church made it official. December 25th was declared the feast day of the Nativity.
Oh, excuse me, wrong one.
Ninib is said to shine like the sun. Astrologers must have found it increasingly conspicuous as it is present. What could have caused the races of antiquity to give Saturn the name Sun, or the Shining One? Ninib was the Babylonian name for Saturn, or at least one of them. Other names include Ninurta, which according to numerous scholars was the inspiration for the biblical character Nimrod. Ninib is said to shine like the sun. Astrologers must have found it increasingly contrary to reason to associate the star that gives us light and life with one of the palest and slowest of the planets. That's where the word Saturnine comes from. It means dark, slow, and gloomy. The Romans named the planet after Saturnus, the god of the harvest responsible for the Golden Age, which is the same as the Greek god Kronos, with a C, and Chronos, with a K, often confused with Kronos with an H, the personification of time. It seems through the passage of millennia, Kronos has been infused with Kronos, who has been infused with death, aka the Grim Reaper, due to the fact that time leads to death. This is why separate searches for all of these characters will reveal them carrying a scythe. The ancient Greeks had two words for time, chronos and kairos. While chronos refers to chronological sequential time, kairos signifies specific opportune moments. Another noted deity that represents time is Ion, though Ion stands for time unbounded, while chronos symbolizes time divided into past, present, and future. God and time have always gone hand in hand. It reminds me of the watchmaker analogy, also known as the argument from design, which states, Just as watches are set in motion by watchmakers, after which they operate according to their pre-established mechanisms, so also was the world begun by the God as creator, after which it and all its parts have operated according to their pre-established natural laws. With these laws perfectly in place, events have unfolded according to the prescribed plan. Sir Isaac Newton argued that the regular motion of the planets made it reasonable to believe in the continued existence of God. Newton also upheld the idea that, like a watchmaker, God was forced to intervene in the universe and tinker with the mechanism from time to time to ensure that it continued operating in good working order. Let's dig a little deeper into the many names of Saturn. Before the Romans and the Greeks, the Phoenicians worshipped the god Elis, or El, who was said to have sacrificed his only begotten son. Upon his death, he was deified as Saturn. Other Phoenician Canaanites worshipped Baal, which is also watchmaker. God was forced to intervene in the universe and tinker with the mechanism from time to time to ensure that it continued operating in good working order. Let's dig a little deeper into the many names of Saturn. Before the Romans and the Greeks, the Phoenicians worshipped the god Elis, or El, who was said to have sacrificed his only begotten son. Upon his death, he was deified as Saturn. Other Phoenician Canaanites worshipped Baal. Let's dig a little deeper into the many names of Saturn. Before the Romans and the Greeks, the Phoenicians worshipped the god Elis, or El, who was said to have sacrificed his only begotten son. Upon his death, he was deified as Saturn. Other Phoenician Canaanites worshipped Baal, which is also known as Moloch. Ancient Egypt's version of Cronus was assumed to be the god Jeb, but is also identified with Set or Seth. To the Hindus, he was called Shani, or Shani. To the Armenians, Zervan, or Zervan. It can get a little confusing and even controversial, especially to certain religious groups that don't realize they are pagans. But you just need to understand that seemingly all cultures and religions share astro-theological stories that result in the same character. Let's dig a little deeper into the many names of Saturn. Before the Romans and the Greeks, the Phoenicians worshipped the god Elis, or El, who was said to have sacrificed his only begotten son. Upon his death, he was deified as Saturn. Other Phoenician Canaanites worshipped Baal, which is also known as Moloch. Ancient Egypt's version of Cronus was assumed to be the god Jeb, but is also identified with Set or Seth. To the Hindus, he was called Shani, or Shani. To the Armenians, Zervan, or Zervan. It can get a little confusing and even controversial, especially to certain religious groups that don't realize they are pagans. But you just need to understand that seemingly all cultures and religions share astro-theological stories that result in the same characters under different names, and since their creation have diverged in slightly varied directions. If you look far enough into this, you'll find that Saturn can represent multiple gods within one system of deities, including Christianity. It is said that Saturn is the god of 1,000 names, and is no particular deity, but rather a universal spirit for the with Set or Seth. To the Hindu, sure that it continued operating in good working order. Let's dig a little deeper into the many names of Saturn. Before the Romans and the Greeks, the Phoenicians worshipped the god Elis, or El, who was said to have sacrificed his only begotten son. Upon his death, he was deified as Saturn. Other Phoenician Canaanites worshipped Baal, which is also known as Moloch. Ancient Egypt's version of Cronus was assumed to be the god Jeb, but is also identified with Set or Seth. To the Hindus, he was called Shani, or Shani. To the Armenians, Zervan, or Zervan. It can get a little confusing and even controversial, especially to certain religious groups that don't realize they are pagans. But you just need to understand that seemingly all cultures and religions share astro-theological stories that result in the same characters under different names.
That's why for me it's hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. Oh wow, all that L. You know, I get it. I believe it. You know, the beginnings keep going, man.
And since their creation have diverged in slightly varied directions. If you look far enough into this, you'll find that Saturn can represent multiple gods within one system of deities, including Christianity. It is said that Saturn is the god of 1,000 names, and is no particular deity, but rather a universal spirit for the entire world that encompasses every aspect of our reality. A few other names and associations for Saturn include, but are not limited to, Jupiter, the Centaur, Orion, Osiris, Dionysus, the Winged One, Adonai, Hermes, Prometheus, Poseidon, Zeus, Thor, Serapis, Apollo, Tammuz, Attis, Hercules, Shiva, Dagon, Remphan, Azazel, Noah, Jesus, and Abraham. I did say that it could get a bit confusing, didn't I? But rather a universal spirit for the entire world that encompasses every aspect of our reality. A few other names and associations for Saturn include, but are not limited to, Jupiter, the Centaur, Orion, Osiris, Dionysus, the Winged One, Adonai, Hermes, Prometheus, Poseidon, Zeus, Thor, Serapis, Apollo, Tammuz, Attis, Hercules, Shiva, Dagon, Remphan, Azazel, Noah, Jesus, and Abraham. I did say that it could get a bit confusing, didn't I? For a more in-depth study of this chapter, refer to the YouTube channel called Son of Saturn. Link is in the description.
Saturnia and Saturnalia.
Before Rome was rebuilt in 753 BC, it was known as Saturnia. Saturnia is where the Roman festival Saturnalia took place in honor of the god Saturn. Saturnalia has its origins in an earlier Greek celebration called Chronia, in honor of Kronos. So it is the same thing. The only notable difference was that Chronia was celebrated on the 12th day of Hecatombion, which is roughly the end of July, beginning of August, whereas Saturnalia was held at the end of December. The holy day, or holiday, was celebrated with the sacrifice at the Temple of Saturn in the Roman Forum, and a public banquet, followed by a private gift-giving, continual partying, and a carnival atmosphere that overturned Roman social norms. Gambling was permitted, and masters provided table service for their slaves. Saturnalia was a celebration and reflection of the lost golden age, when humans enjoyed the spontaneous bounty of the earth without labor under the rule of Saturn. According to Macrobius, a Latin writer from late antiquity who is the major source for information about this holy day, Saturnalia is a festival of light leading to the winter solstice, with the abundant presence of candles symbolizing the quest for knowledge and truth. Celebrated in the later Roman Empire on December 25th at the Dies Natalis of Sol Invictus, which means the birthday of the unconquerable sun, now celebrated as Christmas.
The cube.
The most sacred place in Islam is the Kaaba in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. The Kaaba is a mosque built by Abraham according to Muslim tradition, constructed around a black stone. The Prophet Muhammad designated Mecca as the holy city of Islam and the direction in which all Muslims should offer their prayers. The Kaaba is believed to be the first place that was created on earth. According to my research, once a year, Muslims gather to encircle the Kaaba and walk around it counterclockwise. On the other side of the map in New York, there is an inverted cube in the ground where the Twin Towers once stood. Coincidence? Maybe. Meanwhile, on the flag of Israel, there is a hexagon in the middle of the six-pointed star, which can be interpreted as a 2D cube. Also, observant Jews wear what's called tefillin, or singular tefillah, which are little black cubes inscribed with verses from the Torah. They wrap them around their arms and they wear them on their heads. So what do Muslims have to do with Jews? Well, let's find out.
The Zohar explains this is the secret behind Abraham binding his son Isaac. Each of us are required to sacrifice our ego for the sake of sharing with others. The tefillin act like an antenna that draws down a powerful spiritual force that negates and sacrifices the influence of our selfish nature and ugly ego. 99% of Jews have no clue that this is why we bind tefillin on our left arm. We use the left arm as the left connotes our ego and the negative, Isaac, and the right refers to the soul and the positive, Abraham. Each year, Muslims go on a pilgrimage to walk around the Kaaba in Mecca, counterclockwise, 7 times. This is exactly how we wrap and bind our tefillin, counterclockwise, 7 times. The purpose of Hajj for Muslims is to connect to the same event of Abraham binding Isaac. Muslims relate this to Abraham binding his son Ishmael. The connection is profound. Only Kabbalah explains the true spiritual purpose. Perhaps this is why the Kaaba in Mecca is known as the House of Allah. Kaaba, and Allah, as we know, spells Kabbalah.
And what's all the...
And so I just wanted to point this out real quick. And listen, again, this ain't about disrespecting nobody's beliefs or none of that. But lexicons, Strong's H2421, Hayya, 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 right? Hayya, 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 Hayya. Right? And just, you know, as it says, to revive, to live, to give life to give promise of life, to live, to nourish up, to preserve, to quicken, to recover, to repair, revive. God. Hey-ya, 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 to revive, to live, to live, to live. Just wanted to show you that, to live, to remain alive. So hey-ya, to restore, to revive, to restore to life, to preserve alive, to let live, to cause to grow, to give life, to sustain life, to live upon, to live, to give life, giver of life. Hey-ya. Just wanted to point that out. Just wanted to point that out. And that's hey ya. And then of course we have hey wa. Hava. Breathe life into. So, you know, I'm just pointing stuff out, man.
Saturn. Well, Saturn has a hexagon on its north pole, supposedly, that can also be interpreted as a 2D cube. An ancient Sumerian cylinder portrays what appears to be a planet with a 6-pointed star ring around it, possibly Saturn. I would also buy that it's a shining sun, bringing us back to the theory that either Saturn was once the sun or another name for the sun. Another connection lies within the name Israel itself. Many scholars, and I mean many, have concluded that Israel is compounded from the names Isis, Ra, and El. You can go against the etymology all you'd like, but this is pretty obvious. So the hexagon, the cube, and Saturn make sense, but I'll admit it's semi-reasonable to be skeptical. People have also connected the black cube worship with a few other black cubes scattered about the world. There is a glass cube Apple store in New York. Apple's logo is already highly symbolic, stands for forbidden knowledge, so the cube is definitely questionable. In the prayer room at the United Nations, there is a black stone. I already know that the UN is crazy, so this is also questionable. They probably sacrifice babies on it. Something eerily similar was shown in the Miley Cyrus video with Big Sean. Here's yet another cube connection with the depiction of New Jerusalem mentioned in Revelations 21:16. Let's look at some relevant books that I found with mentions of cubes. The Shape of God.
The infinite cube is a concept without any practical value other than a way to visualize the infinite by limiting it. Infinity is a term that is hard to pin down. Time and space can be called infinite, but you still can't pin down just exactly where infinity is. God, the Absolute, is said to be an infinite cube. There is no place in which God is not present in the infinite cube. The cube unites the tetrahedron and contains it. The cube may be tiled with tetrahedrons. Tetrahedrons may be tiled, infinitely, to infinity, no problemo. Cubes may also be tiled to infinity. The concept of the infinite cube is what is behind the shape of the Holy of Holies and the Kaaba.
The Spear of Destiny.
In the temple where Caiaphas and Annas awaited news of mutilation of the body of the Messiah, the veil of the Holy of Holies was rent from the top to bottom to expose the black cube of the Old Covenant, which is now split along its edges to open out into the form of a cross. The imageless cult of Jehovah was ended. The religion of the open heavens had begun.
And my favorite find, new dimensions for the cube of space. Check this out.
The cube is also a special geometrical shape for the sacred temples of many religions. The cube as the temple appears in the West in the three major religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. In Judaism, the temple that King Solomon built to honor Yahweh had for its inner sanctum the shape of a perfect cube. The temple itself was rectangular and was divided into an outer and an inner court by a folding partition that served as a door between the outer and the inner. This partition divided the temple in such a way that the inner court became a perfect cube with a dimension of 30 feet. At the exact center of this inner cube lay the Holy of Holies, a double cube lying on its side 4 feet long, 2 feet wide, and 2 feet high. Within the Holy of Holies were the 2 tablets of the law and a miniature perfect cube inscribed with the name of God, Yahweh. The cubic temple itself is symbolic of the cube of space in all its dimensions, while the Holy of Holies at its center symbolizes the Hebrew letter Tau and the tarot card, the world, which is both the temple that stands at the center of the universe and the exact center of the cube of space. Masonic lodges also obey this symbolism. They are oblong in shape, with the northernmost part of the lodge extending beyond the other 3 walls. 3 lights shine on the central altar, at east, south, and west, to further emphasize the cubic nature of the inner sanctum of the Temple of Solomon. Thus, the lodge itself is the rectangular body of the temple, while the altar is the inner cubic temple. In Christianity, the New Jerusalem, the city of heaven in Revelation, is also a perfect cube, its length, breadth, and height each measuring 12,000 furlongs. Each of the cube's 12 edges measure 12,000 furlongs, a play on the 12 signs of the zodiac that govern the 12 edges of the cube of space. This celestial cube is the cube of space, as the star map of the sky, in which the elements, planets, and zodiac all have their appropriate stations. This heavenly cube also holds a great mystery in that each of its 6 faces measures 144,000 furlongs, 12,000 times 12,000. The number 144,000 is the secret symbolic number of...
Yeah, he getting way deeper than I wanted to get with this piece, but I'm happy I added a little bit of that there, and just to show again Strong's Concordance. 1961, to be, to become, to exist, to happen, to become, to be. I am. The Hebrew verb heya is the fundamental term in the Old Testament, translated as to be or to become. It conveys the idea of existence, occurrence, or coming into being. This verb is pivotal in expressing states of being and unfolding of events. It is frequently used in the context of God's self-revelation, as seen in the divine I am, Exodus 3:1 and 4. In ancient Hebrew culture, the concept of being was not merely a static existence, but involved dynamic action and purpose. The verb haya reflects this understanding, emphasizing the action, presence, and involvement of God in the world. The use of haya in the context of God's name, Yahweh, or Hawa, or Heya, underscores his eternal self-existent nature, distinguishing himself from the gods surrounding nations. To be, to become, to fall out, come to pass, become, became, becoming, being. Fire station. All right. Oh, sorry. Let's get this real quick.
The hypercube is a symbol of dark occultism, not Satanism specifically, but certainly a very deeply occulted, dark occult symbol. The hypercube is one of the most occulted symbolism within all dark occultism, yet it is found prevalently throughout our society in the form of octagonal symbolism. And as we'll see, the two-dimensional projection of the hypercube, which is a representation of a four-dimensional object, is an octagon. And the octagon is one of the big satanic symbols that they use everywhere. They also use the octagon in the form of two squares overlapping each other at 90-degree angles, or the double square. You'll see that all over in control-based institutions. So in 3 dimensions, it appears as a cube within a cube. This is a 3-dimensional depiction of the 4-dimensional hypercube. You're rotating a cube in around all of its planes, around all of its surfaces. Very difficult to conceptualize in the human imagination because we live in a 3D world, not a 4D one. Symbolically, though, the hypercube represents a never-ending prison which perpetually renews itself. Or in other words, hell. So this is what a hypercube does. It folds in upon itself, then there's another cube. And the outside folds around it, and then there's another cube inside. And it just goes round and round and round and round. The Matrix, The Matrix and rebooting it. So the perpetual prison is the symbol that the hypercube represents, is the concept that the hypercube represents symbolically. Here it is in the form of the double square. So the double square, this is from David Icke's book, great researcher, his book called The Biggest Secret, where he describes the double square. The double square, one square on top of another in any form, is more secret society symbolism. In the secret language of symbolism, one square on top of another means control of all that is right and all that is wrong. Again, moral relativism. All that is just and all that is unjust, man's law. All that is positive and all that is negative. In other words, we control everything. And I, joked around about this at Free Your Mind 1 when I gave the presentation called Occult Mockery of Police and Military. When he's saying we control everything, he doesn't mean you, police. He means your owners. He means your dark occult masters who own the police. So there's the 2D projection of the hypercube in 2 dimensions. And you could see the outline makes the shape of the octagon, which is inside that double square. And you see this all over the symbolism of police, often put right on the head of the police, along with other dark occult symbolism such as the Masonic floor of the house wrapped around the brain. We'll get to the occult mockery of police and military later in the presentation. One of the symbols I haven't discussed prior to this is one of the main symbols of Satanism, and particularly LaVeyan Satanism, the trapezoid. In Satanism, the trapezoid represents the imbalanced, ego-driven consciousness and identification purely with the physical self. It is considered a perversion of the, quote, divine shape, the circle, since its angles total 360 degrees. In its satanic connotation, the trapezoid is considered a, quote, soul trap. symbolizing going around in circles of base consciousness. Levian Satanists use trapezoidal altars in many of their rituals. And where is the most predominant place symbolically that the trapezoid is found, ladies and gentlemen? There it is. There's the trapezoid. That's the satanic symbol. That's why it is the satanic part of the pyramid and all-seeing eye, not the eye part. That eye part represents divine wisdom that they are trying to block from the world. They want to be God. They don't want the light of the Creator actually coming down to the earth and going into the people of the earth. They want them in this prison, this trapezoid, the soul trap. So the block part of that symbol, the brick that weighs us down and keeps us absolutely rigid and unyielding and not able to say that we were wrong and not able to grow in consciousness and only have one unidimensional, one form thinking, to stay in that uniform and weight of brick, block-headed consciousness. Okay? That's what the trapezoid represents.
Very nice, very nice. And I know you're saying, yo, Ghetto, why you showing us all of this? Oh, we gonna piece it all together by the end of this series. You're gonna be happy you picked up on that. And actually, real quick,
Souls in
let me just
heaven.
finish this.
This sacred number symbolizes every sign of the zodiac, and height each measuring 12,000 furlongs. Each of the cube's 12 edges measure 12,000 furlongs, a play on the 12 signs of the zodiac that govern the 12 edges of the cube of space.
And repeat this
celestial cube is the cube of space, as the star map of the sky, in which the elements, planets, and zodiac all have their appropriate stations. This heavenly cube also holds a great mystery in that each of its 6 faces measures 144,000 furlongs, 12,000 times 12,000. The number 144,000 is the secret symbolic number of souls in heaven. This sacred number symbolizes every sign of the zodiac. Squared is in heaven 1,000-fold. It is thus the number for all souls excluding none. In Islam, the most sacred shrine, Kaaba of Mecca, is also cubic in shape. The Kaaba, derived from the Arabic Kab, meaning cube, was a shrine that predated Islam. It was a granite-like cube-shaped shrine, originally surrounded by 360 pagan idols, marking the old measure of the year as 360 rather than 365 days. Muhammad eventually destroyed furlongs, 12,000 times 12,000. The number 144,000 is the secret symbolic number of souls in heaven. This sacred number symbolizes every sign of the zodiac. Squared is in heaven 1,000-fold. It is thus the number for all souls excluding none. In Islam, the most sacred shrine, Kaaba of Mecca, is also cubic in shape. The Kaaba, derived from the Arabic Kab, meaning cube, was a shrine that predated Islam. It was a granite-like cube-shaped shrine, originally surrounded by 360 pagan idols, marking the old measure of the year as 360 rather than 365 days. Muhammad eventually destroyed these 360 idols. The Kaaba is aligned so that each corner marks a cardinal direction. Embedded in its eastern corner is the sacred stone known as the Black Stone, which acts like the cornerstone of a Masonic structure. Pilgrims who walk around the Kaaba stone 7 times finish their pilgrimage by touching or kissing this sacred black stone. Here again, the cube as the temple becomes a symbol of celestial hierarchy. In this instance, the Kaaba is the central sun, while the wandering pilgrims are the planets, who orbit around the sun.
Fair use. Fair mother flipping use, boy. Sheesh.
There have been many incarnations of the mystery school tradition in the West since the Middle Ages. One esoteric school, the 19th century secret society known as the Order of the Golden Dawn, is closest in grade structure to the map of spiritual development outlined on the cube of space. In order to understand the initiatory grades of the Golden Dawn, we first need to understand their predecessors. The spiritual lineage for the Golden Dawn is shown briefly in the following timeline: alchemy, Hermeticism, Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, Theosophy, and finally the Golden Dawn.
I just really needed some of that, more of that Saturnalia stuff. But salute to RTV for putting together a really good presentation. Definitely check them out. I'm gonna leave it right there for today, gang. We have a ton more stuff that we're gonna cover, but we really needed to get a bigger understanding of the occult of Saturn, the occultism of Saturn. We went over some more Yule stuff. I hope you guys found that entertaining and educational and enlightening. This is gonna be fun, guys. We got so much more stuff to cover and dig into. This is going to be fun. We haven't even brought in really the understanding of Nimrod and Gilgamesh and how all those stories coincide yet. This is going to be fun, gang. This is going to be fun. I really am happy to be able to do this and bring all this information to you. And I listen, again, if you're going to be pagan, be pagan. Stand 2 toes down on it. Stand 10 toes down on it. Don't play around talking about, oh yeah, you know, I worship the Most High, this and that, bobbity bobbity boobity scoobity. Do you now? Do you now? Okay, we'll play that game. As always, gang, tap in with me. Let me know how crazy I am. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. If it ain't I am, I don't want no parts of it. You understand me? If it ain't, yeah, leave me out the conversation. Hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah. Leave me out the conversation if it ain't about that. You understand? His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. Tap in, tap in, tap in. We'll have the next part up soon. Hope this was enjoyable, gang. It was a lot, but for those that rock through, I just learned a ton. Rewind it back. Don't believe it. Cross-reference it. Double, triple, quadruple check it with sources. And if you see anything that sound crazy, let's have a conversation, gang. For right now, I'm out. Peace and blessings.
Thank you for coming. I'll see you in hell.
Later, fam.
Thank you for coming. I'll see you in hell.
So nice I had to say it twice. Peace and blessings, tribe.